Week 3, Day 2, Creativity. This first slide is a review from the lecture Structure of an Advertising Agency. We're talking about creativity now, so I just wanted to review that. The creative department develops the ideals, images, and words which is the technical term is copy, and we'll talk more about that make up the ads. And then remember, I have a range of salary there depending on where you work and what kind of agency you work in. So you have your creative group. They're the lifeblood of the business because they're responsible for writing and designing advertising campaigns. An ad agency is only as good as the ads that come out the creative department. Everyone within the creative services report to the creative directors. It is his or her role to steer the creative product, making sure it is on brand, on brief, and on time. In most agencies, copywriters and art directors are paired up together, working as teams. The best creatives can continually think of fresh approaches to advertise a brand or service and are equally skilled at selling their ideals to clients. And as I said before, creatives spend less time with clients, but the time they do spend with them is crucial to the agency's sale process. Again, here's another review slide from that same lecture with the hierarchy of the structure of the creative department. So you have the creative group. Within the creative group, you have the creative director. Sometimes you have an associate director, and then copywriters and art directors. You may have a couple of pair of those, and then you might have the junior and copywriter and ad director, and then even sometimes graphic designers under there. Now let's look at some things that most people would consider creative. This is a statue in Singapore. It's called People of the River. This is known as one of the most creative statues in the world. This sculpture literally looks as if children are jumping into the river. Pretty creative statue when you think about statues being still figures, and these look like they're actually moving. This one is called Breakthrough from Your Mold, and this is in Philly, Pennsylvania. When the artist created this statue, he strived to show an image that all of mankind could relate to, struggling to break through from the mold that binds us. And this is another one that shows a movement. This is hand art where it's been painted to look like a peacock. Here's another one of hand art where it looks like someone is playing soccer. This one is actually a billboard advertisement, advertising the shaver made from Bic. Nothing's on the billboard except their logo, but it'll catch your attention because you have this Bic shaver and then this area of the grass removed as if it shaved the grass. And then the last one I want to show you, this is creative artwork by Christina Webb, and it is a drawing of, she's a fashion designer drawer, and this is a drawing of a dress on a woman, and it looks like a peacock. So think about, what do all these examples of creativity have in common? They're all different things. You have statues, you have drawings, you have hand artwork. What do they have in common? The first thing is a degree of uniqueness. They're all very unique. They're different. And the second is a degree of familiarity, meaning even though they're different, we still get it. We understand what it represents. Like, let's just take the artwork of the lady with the peacock dress on it. We're familiar that it's a peacock dress, that it looks like a peacock, but it's very unique. So creativity is taking existing things, combining them in new ways or for new purposes. So a peacock already exists. Fashion designers already exist. We're combining that together. Or in the hand art, where it was a peacock. We know it's a peacock. It's something that already exists, but we're combining it in a new way for a new purpose as hand art. So let's talk about how the thinking brain works. So you have the left side of the brain and you have the right side of the brain. Let's start with the left side. The left side is rational, meaning to act with reasoning. It's also practical, actually doing something versus the theory of doing it. So not just saying, okay, if you do this, this was what should happen, but being practical about it and actually doing it. Logical, meaning following all the rules. The left side is linear, meaning it does things in order, the way they're supposed to be done. Analytical, meaning to examine in detail. And finally, the left side of the brain is mathematical, using data, statistics, and numbers. Now let's talk about the right side of the brain. The right side of the brain is where creativity happens. It deals with emotions, feelings, and moods. It's creative. It comes up with original ideas. It's imaginative. Imaginative meaning forming mental images and concepts. It's intuitive, based on how one feels without reasoning about it. So it's that gut feeling. It's holistic, focusing on the whole and not the individual parts. And it's expanded. Broaden your horizons and perspective. So the right side of the brain don't follow the rules. It thinks outside of the box, where the left side of the brain is very rational and logical. It follows the rules, and it follows it in order. The thinking process is like a kayak with two paddles. One paddle represents creative thinking, while the other represents critical thinking. So they work together. So let's talk about how we think. Critical thinking is the process we use to reflect on, assess, and judge the assumptions underlying our own and other ideals and efforts. And this happens on the left side of the brain. So we're very analytical when we're critically thinking. So we're examining in great detail. We're judgmental. So looking at things from a critical point of view, excessively. Selective, looking for the most suitable or the best qualified when we're critically thinking. Probability, the likelihood that something will happen. When we're critically thinking, it's always that thought of yes, but more questions and more analysis. It's never really satisfied. So that's how we think critically. We also can think creatively. This is the process we use to develop ideals that are unique, useful, and worthy of further elaboration. And this happens on the right side of the brain. In this creative thinking, we're exploring new ideals. We're having the power or function to generate, originating, and producing. When you're creative thinking, you're non-judgmental. You're expansive, so you broaden your horizons and perspectives. You think of all the different possibilities and conditions of being possible. And then in a critical thinking, it's not yes, but, however, it's yes, and. So you're adding to what you have already come up with. So let's talk about a process for generating ideals. This is something else that we'll dive into more in SMAT 443 when we're doing a lot of concepting and brainstorming. So James Webb Young, someone you should know as an advertising major, he is in the American Federation Hall of Fame, the AAF, and that's a museum celebrating extraordinary men and women who have made significant contributions to advertising and society. He came up with 4 stages of Young's process for generating ideals. So let's talk about those 4 stages. The first one is preparation. That's when you gather specific information and general information like brainstorming, and we'll discuss brainstorming a little later in this lecture. But you don't want to procrastinate in doing this. So you're gathering information, you're doing your research, you're brainstorming, and then you go to the next step, which is digestion. So in this step, you get rid of the obvious things, the obvious ideals. You have all this information. Let's say you have all these different Post-its on the wall. Each one has different information, facts, ideals. And so now you're going to digest it and you're going to start taking off things that can't work for whatever reason. And then you go to the next stage. That's the incubation stage. That's when you take a break and do anything except work on the problem. So I've been working on this for hours. I'm going to take a break and I'm not going to even think about it anymore. I'm going to let my creative side of my brain rest and I'm just going to leave it alone. And then you have your 4th stage. That's the illumination stage. This is when an ideal just pops in your head out of nowhere. This happens on the right side of the brain, the creative side. So think about like when you're in the shower and you previously had a problem or something you was working on or trying to figure out, and then all of a sudden this wonderful ideal pops up in your head. That's the illumination stage. So back to the preparation stage in the beginning, the first stage that we talked about. This is when you'll do your brainstorming to generate ideals. And as I said before, you'll do a lot of this in 443 when coming up with ideals and concepts. So brainstorming is using the brain to storm a creative problem commando fashion, with each stormer or group member attacking the same objectives. Benefits are power of association is a two-way current, and people say things and chain reaction occurs with subsequent ideals building off of early ones. So 2 of us get together and we try to come up with an ideal for a solution. Maybe we're stuck and somebody says something and then the other person's like, oh yeah, what about this? So that's like a two-way current where it's a chain reaction and things like that of that nature. So here's your touch of creativity. Enjoy the rest of your day.